don't know, I just feel really compelled to do this. I just want to invite you just to take a minute and I just want you to just get centered for a second, okay? So I want you to just, if you're distracted, I want you to imagine your feet on the floor. I want you to think about your bottom in your seat, and if you have a free hand and you can just put it on your heart, or if you can just put it on your belly, I would invite you to do that. And just for a minute, I'm just going to invite you to close your eyes. And I would just invite you to take a big deep breath and just acknowledge that you're here for a reason and a purpose that is divine and probably bigger than maybe you even understand today. And in this space, you are welcomed, you are accepted, and you are loved by whoever invited you. And so I'm just going to ask you to step into your heart for just a minute as I share my story. And when you're ready, I just want you to open your eyes and whatever you need to do, wiggle your fingers or wiggle your toes and just come back to the room for a second. Can everybody hear me in the back? Okay. So my name's Holly Pickerel, and I'm a wife and a mom from Glasgow, Kentucky. And my background is in teaching, so I always knew I wanted to be a teacher because I wanted to inspire and I wanted to make a difference, and I felt very called to help people create transformation in their lives, and that felt like the best avenue for me to do that. Now, have you ever entered a job and you thought, this is not that? So while I loved my fourth graders, and I loved and enjoyed my coworkers dearly, that's where I found myself in my first year of teaching. And I just remember thinking to no one but myself, because I was afraid, because I had spent money on 2 degrees and was working on my 3rd. I was afraid to admit that, especially to my husband and to my parents and to all the people around me who seemed to love what they did. But I just remember thinking, I feel like I'm called to do these same things, but in a platform that enables me to do it on my own terms. So I held that inside until I became a mom after 6 years of teaching. And when I realized I was going to be a mom to a newborn baby, and I also had a 2-year-old that I was devastated that I was having to drop off for someone else to take care of so I could go to work and be there at 6:50 in the morning every day, I thought, for me, I don't want to do this anymore. And while some moms do, and I respect that, that just wasn't for me. And although I didn't understand it, because I've always known God's called me to community and to work, I trusted it. So in that season, I came home. What I did not tell you is that I had already began a really amazing opportunity with the Juice Plus company, and I was loving some really amazing products that I had been taking for over a year as a prenatal vitamin, so to speak. And I'd already began sharing it with people, just as a way to offset the cost of my products. In that season of coming home, I began to think, what if I could just take this and bless a few other families with it? Like, what if something good could come from that? And so in that season of being kind of alone and nursing and having 2 little babies following me around everywhere, I began to invest in the power of social media. And I began to learn how to speak to people through social media. I began to use that network to find people who wanted what I had and to share a message of hope with them. And so in that season, we weren't just able to do little things, we were able to do very big things. And that year of what I thought was going to be a one year leave of absence of FMLA leave from my teaching career turned into what kept me home permanently. My kids are now 6 and 8, and I never returned. And I'm so blessed to be able to say that. But the real thing that I want to talk to you about, my D, I actually have 2 Ds, and I'm going to add one that you're going to love sharing. So when I came home, I didn't understand that God always knew what was about to happen in my life, and He was using this to prepare a path for me. And I won't apologize for my emotion, because I think that when that happens, it's for a reason. And so, in that season of coming home, we didn't just realize that our business was going to give us finances that kept me home, it was also going to give us time. So what started out as something that helped us with our mortgage actually became what helped us with our marriage counseling. Because in all those years of working and doing all the things, we had no idea that instead of turning towards one another, my husband and I had turned away from one another. So in that place, I remember when my husband presented me with some news that no wife would ever want to hear, but can become the greatest gift and blessing if she chooses to see it as that. I remember seeing this clear line in the sand of, are we going to make it? Like, are we going to make it? And having to decide. I want to acknowledge that I had the gift of being able to decide because I had a husband who was willing to work with me, and not all women have that. So I don't want you to hear my story and feel shame. And so in that place of being home and have been given the gift of time, freedom, and flexibility, that didn't just keep me home with my babies, but that also allowed me to learn how to forgive, to have the space to grieve, to learn how to go to marriage counseling together, to learn to love each other for who we were, and to go back and to repair some really rocky foundations that we didn't know we entered marriage with. So, 7 years later, we are now working with our counselor, and we have helped over 20 different couples who have gone through the exact same story of addiction and trauma that we went through. And without the gift of the other D, which I'm going to share with you, which is development, I don't know that we could be here. Because along the way of learning how to grow an online business and how to pour into customers through an Instagram or Facebook platform, of learning how to take entrepreneurship seriously, become an entrepreneur who takes ownership for herself and her day and doesn't place blame on anyone. I learned how to not just do that in my business, but in my life. And so I heard this quote on a podcast this week, and it was talking about how, I think it was from Abraham Lincoln. I'm terrible with this. Like, I'm awful at quoting things, so this is probably not even the right person. But it basically said, Abraham Lincoln, I think, somebody important, said that if he had 6 hours to chop down a tree, he would spend the first 4 sharpening his blade.
Yes.
And in the past 5+ years, this business, our business community has given me the chance to sharpen my blade. When my mentor, Jennifer Turner, invited me to a book club about Miracle Morning, she had no idea what I was going through behind the scenes and how desperately I needed to learn how to start my day with positive intention, beyond just a little bit of prayer and a little bit of scripture, but like affirming who I am, journaling the vision. I remember journaling, I have the marriage of my dreams, when I didn't know that I could believe it. And that first book club led to over 200 books in a 4-year period.
Wow.
Because I remember some days thinking, God, what's the task before me? And he said, read the book, listen to the podcast, go to the event, immerse yourself in positive community. And our business culture provided me with everything that I needed. So I wasn't just building an income. I wasn't just finding freedom to raise my babies, which I'm so thankful for. It was way bigger than that. And it was for other people too. In 2020, I had no idea this was going to happen, but several business owners who had closed the doors of their shop due to COVID reached out to me and began asking me, we see what you've done on social media with your health business. Will you teach us? So in 2020, that development even took another path, and I began coaching business owners behind the scenes how to build their own brand on social media and how to be able to do what I had done for themselves. That's turned into a second business opportunity, which I never anticipated ever emerging in the past 6 months. This month, we are about to see a financial number that I never thought possible 7 years ago when I began my career as a teacher. And all of it started with the D of development that I was doing all along, not knowing that God was going to use it for so much more than a way to stay home with my babies, a way to provide an income for them, a way to heal my marriage, but also a way to be able to reach people in an entirely different platform. The things that you're doing today have so much impact, and they're so much greater than you, and I'm so deeply thankful for this opportunity to be able to inspire, to teach, and to give to others in ways that I couldn't have imagined 8 years ago. I'm so thankful that you're here, and I'm going to introduce Miss Michelle Grinsing, who is